Democrats. All of a sudden they have discovered, wow, due process and not rushing to judgment is a good thing. Imagine that. Take a look.
Should Franken resign?
Listen, Al Franken has acknowledged what he did was wrong, and it was wrong. He has also submitted his whole case to the Senate Ethics Committee. I think that was the right thing to do.
Do you think Congressman Conyers, you sit with him on judiciary, should he resign?
Well, I think the ethics process should proceed.
You know Senator Franken, you served with him. What do you think should happen to him? Should he resign?
That's the question that will have to be determined after the investigation.
The House Ethics just this afternoon announced an investigation into John Conyers. He needs to be held accountable for whatever happened.
Should he step
all
down?
Of that, so let's wait and see what the House Ethics does.
Your colleague, Al Franken, has been accused. Do you think he should resign?
I think that is a distraction to be talking about resignation.
Do you now think that your colleague Conyers should resign from the House?
No, and I don't think the rules are different from anyone else.
House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi is also rushing to defend Conyers. She's saying, oh, no rush to judgment. She's actually calling for due process. Watch this.
We are strengthened by due process. Just because someone is accused, and was it one accusation? Is it two? I think there has to be. John Conyers is an icon in our country. He's done a great deal to protect women, violence against women.
He got to hide his settlement. He got to, his accusers had to go through all sorts of craziness. So why is he entitled to new due process in this case?
No, we are talking about what we have heard. I've asked the Ethics Committee to review that.
Yeah.
He has said he'd be open. He will cooperate.
Do you believe the accusers?
Review. Excuse me?
Do you believe John Conyers is accused?
I don't know who they are. Do you? They have not really come forward. And that gets...
You don't know if you believe the accusations?
Well, that's for the Ethics Committee to review.
Now, I stand consistent. I say never rush to judgment. I say everybody deserves the presumption of innocence, and I stand by that in this particular case. But it is funny that Congresswoman Pelosi only seems to care about due process, but only when Democrats are involved. During that same interview, Pelosi was asked about a comment she made in 1998. Then host of Meet the Press, Tim Russert, asked her about the investigation into Bill Clinton. This gets rather humorous, but sad.
Why the silence when there have been these allegations, serious ones, about President Clinton?
Well, I'd like to say that I think that the women of America are speaking out about what they think about this whole situation. And the women of America are just like other Americans in that they value fairness, they value privacy, and do not want to see a person with uncontrolled power, uncontrolled time, unlimited money investigating the President of the United States.
With inconsistent statements like this, can you really trust the Democratic Party to be the champion for women, or are they just playing politics with the topic? Can the Democratic Party...
There's now zero tolerance.
Yes.
John Conyers, what does that mean for him right now?
Let's say
in or out?
We are strengthened by due process. Just because someone is accused, and was it one accusation? Is it two? I think there has to be. John Conyers is an icon in our country. He's done a great deal to protect women, violence against women act, which the right wing is now quoting me as praising him for his work on that, and he did great work on that. But the fact is, as John reviews his case, which he knows, which I don't, I believe he will do. I believe that he will. Excuse me, may I finish my sentence? Sure. That he will do the right thing.
House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi calling Congressman John Conyers an icon, saying we can't rush to judgment. We need due process amid the sexual harassment allegations. Here with the reaction is nationally syndicated radio talk show host, Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce, conservative columnist Monica Crowley, back with us. Let's start about the 30 years of defending the Clintons. Then I didn't hear many Democrats talk, I don't hear them ever talk about due process, not rushing to judgment if it's a Republican. It's pretty transparent now, but it's serious because I say to not rush to judgment on anybody, and that includes John Conyers, who I don't agree on anything with.
So the gravitational pull of partisan politics we know is incredibly powerful, Sean. But here's what makes Mrs. Pelosi's comments so fascinating and also so hypocritical. Because over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of high-profile leftists, people on the left, now saying, well, we need a retrospective on the Clinton crimes against women, the rape allegations, the allegations of sexual assault and sexual harassment. There needs to be a reckoning. Some have even said Bill Clinton should have resigned 25 years ago, right?
They can say it now.
So now,
but wait a minute.
But wait a minute.
Clintons have no power.
But that's right. But that's what makes her words meaningless. Because if the left really meant what they've been saying over the last 2 to 3 weeks about Bill Clinton, then they should be applying an even standard across the board. And what you just saw with Mrs. Pelosi is, well, okay, the Clintons are no longer helpful to us, so we're going to pass judgment on him now that it's too late. But John Conyers, a civil rights icon, no, he needs to stay, and Al Franken needs to stay.
Let me add something here. This is why I split with Now, was during the Bill
Clinton
situation.
By the way, what you mean National Organization for Women? You were the president in LA chapter.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And when I saw, this was where it was clear that it was a fraud. Susan Sarandon's even come out, I think in the last 2 days, saying this entire movement's been a fraud. And my first book, in 2001, saying that the racism, sexism, and homophobia lives on the left. Everything they're doing is fake. And it's like domestic violence. They say they're your champion. They're going to protect you while they victimize you day after day.
She was the president
of? It's finally now becoming clear how much of a fraud this dynamic has been, how many lives it's ruined, and what they're saying when she says John Conyers is an icon, what they're saying is we're willing to have individual women's lives destroyed by these men in the name of the collective. Women should be appalled realizing that they've been conned for 2 generations at this point.
It's too serious, and I said this in the Moore case, because charges were too serious, that people deserve answers, and eventually it's going to be the people that decide, which, by the way, rightly so, not commentators, not these fake news people. Let me tell you how bad it's gotten in this case. This was in the Huffington Post. I want to put it up on the screen, and you can read this. Leanne, meaning Leanne Tweeden, was never raped. She was never assaulted. She was never the victim of sexual violence or harassment. She was a willing and active participant in a comedy show that involved sexualized behaviors, and she consented to participate. She didn't consent to that picture. She was asleep, and that's called evidence. That's irrefutable, incontrovertible evidence. Let me put up another piece. There was a tweet, so-called feminist in this case. Emily Linden is her name. You know, here's an unpopular opinion. I'm actually not at all concerned about innocent men losing their jobs over false sexual assault harassment allegations. Oh, is it your brother? Is it your father? Is it your husband? Is it somebody you care about?
This country is built on individual liberty and individual rights. And what the left is all about, to Tammy's point, is about the collective. They will put their agenda and they will put the so-called good of the group ahead of the rights of the individual, right? So this is what we're seeing now across the board. And with these folks, I will say this, that if you are a woman accusing a man of the left of this kind of thing, you face an uphill battle. You face a much steeper fight because they put the group and the agenda ahead of individual rights.
Part of what has made this flood happen, especially in Hollywood, is the fact that the Clintons now are effectively powerless. They were the glue holding it up. People presumed she would be elected. The silence continued. But as they realized that the people that they were believing would remain in power would not, I think then, of course, a few women said, well, wait a minute. Why are we protecting Harvey Weinstein? Why are we protecting Price at Amazon? Why are we saying nothing when, in fact, they turn around and they realize, because the Hillary Clinton campaign was also false, effectively, why are we doing this now?
I got the crap beat out of me because I said, don't rush to judgment. As it turns out, in the case of Roy Moore, when I said, okay, you have to answer these questions.
Yes.
Well, now we have a woman that claims she has a yearbook. I've talked to forensic experts. They would be able to determine if the signature was his, if they can compare his writing at the time, and whether or not the ink was old or new.
Yes.
So why isn't, nobody's doing the forensic here, which would answer one very significant charge.
Yeah, and look, I think we do have to look more cautiously at accusations that clearly have a goal or a benefit attached to them, like accusations made just prior to an election by individuals.
Or Clarence Thomas.
No, you know, and not that I think that some of those accusers are very credible and others perhaps are not. But the fact of the matter is, people of Alabama will make their decision. What I object to is Mitch McConnell telling him then to leave the race when he's been strangely silent, hasn't he, over the Conyers issue, the Al Franken issue, where suddenly are all these champions on the right?
Because they're all scared to death, Tammy.
Well, but it also does not help their goal and their agenda.
Right, but they're all scared to death because God knows what's